Hi there, everybody. Welcome to Trans and the Unfriendly Fridays. This week I have with me Elise. We're going to be talking about a lot of really cool things. How you doing today, Elise?
I'm doing all right. Still a little bit tired because it's 8:11 a.m. in the Netherlands right now.
True, true. Well, thank you for joining us here so early in the AM for you. Realize it's a little bit later at night for me, but I do appreciate your time either way. So thank you, thank you.
No worries. I saw a couple of my friends like Ashley and
Mhm.
Lucille go on the show, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'd like to go on
Oh,
as well.
nice. Very cool. Well, yeah, it's always appreciated. Thank you. Do you want to go ahead and just jump right into it? We can share a little bit about your experience being a trans person.
Oh yeah, sure. Let's jump right into it. Um, so do you want me to start or?
Sure. Yeah. So when was it that you realized that you were trans? How did that come about for you?
Well, for me, it came about in a really weird way, kind of.
Hmm.
Um, like for as long as I can remember, ever since being a young kid, I'd always had these dreams, these fantasies of, turning into a girl and stuff like that, and thinking, "Oh, that feels good," but that probably doesn't mean anything,
Hmm.
because young me thought, "Oh, well, that can't ever happen." And then when I was like 14 or 15, ages ago, anyhow.
Hmm.
Um, My sister came back from school one day. She was in this debate club, I believe. And this particular day, they were discussing trans rights, transgender people, and that kind of stuff. And me, who has had these kind of feelings for a long time, well, asks her, "What are these people?" and stuff like that. And then
Hmm.
the more she tells about them, the more I'm like, that sounds familiar.
Okay.
Um, so that's kind of how I figured it out.
Nice.
But sadly, I didn't really have the courage to really go through with it much after that.
Hmm.
I did try on some makeup and stuff from time to time, but I just grew up in a very orthodox Protestant upbringing. So,
Hmm.
uh, deviating from the norm is not something that's generally accepted in those circles. Um, I was
Hmm.
also in the Scout, heavily active uh, in the church and stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
that all combined to kind of reinforce that feeling of, you know, this is wrong. I, I shouldn't do this.
Hmm.
That kind of stuff. So, for like a close, good lord, how long was it? For a close 4, 6 years, I just kept it buried until I just kind of had a mental breakdown over it and dysphoria caused by r/egg IRL, so that's a thing. um, and after that, I just decided, screw it, I can't wait any longer. I'm just gonna go for it. And then I came out and it went pretty all right.
Nice.
My my mom's been great through all of this. Like I'm genuinely so appreciative of her because she's super accepting of me. She's helped me a lot and stuff like that. She's also given me money for treatments and stuff like that. So,
Hmm.
uh, yeah, that's great. Uh,
That's good.
uh, but yeah, then somewhere around July 2019, I think it could have been May 2019. It's been a while.
Hmm.
Um, yeah, I basically, I asked to be put on the waiting list for trans healthcare here in the Netherlands,
Hmm.
and that's kind of where I've stayed for the past 2.5, almost 3 years. Um, because Dutch trans healthcare is just kind of not great, to put it
Hmm.
very lightly. Um, but yeah, that's how I figured out I was trans and stuff.
Nice. Well, let's talk a little bit more about trans healthcare. You said you're on a waiting list there, and you've been on a waiting list for, you said, 3 years?
Yeah, almost 3 years now.
Goodness.
Yeah.
So,
Mhm.
sorry, go ahead.
No, what did you want to say? I'm
Oh,
sorry.
no, it's okay. I was just gonna ask, is that the case for everyone? All the trans people in the Netherlands have to be
Oh
on
yeah,
that waiting list.
yeah. No, that's the case for pretty much every trans person in the Netherlands. Some are lucky and they find other ways to get it, either DIY or their local regional hospital
Hmm.
um, does it. For instance, I know in Groningen or one of the other regions in the Netherlands,
Mm-hmm.
um, there is also a hospital that takes in trans patients and gives them trans care, but they only take in provincial patients, so only people who actually live in that region,
Oh,
uh,
okay.
which means it isn't quite applicable for me.
Right.
Uh, I don't live too far from Groningen, but at the same time, I also don't live close enough to it to be applicable for this.
Gotcha.
Um, but yeah, uh, that that health that waiting list is just kind of what all trans people in the Netherlands have to go through,
Mm-hmm.
and yeah, it's just really horrible. Like um, last July, I called with the hospital and I said like, well, how much longer do I have to wait? And then they said, oh, well, we'll get you in around the end of August. End of August came by. I called them and I was like, hey, so when am I getting in? And they said, well, we've had a little bit of pushback. Wait till the end of September. End of September comes by. I call them again, and then finally they're just being honest and they say, honestly, we don't know. It could take a while. And then like a week later after that, I get a letter from them basically saying, because of COVID and other things, we are putting uh, acceptance of patients into the trajectory on hold for a little bit.
That's awful.
It is, and then when I made a complaint about it with their complaints office, I
Mm-hmm.
basically just got I got a very, crocodile tears apology saying, we're sorry for this. And it's like, yeah, great that you're sorry, but you gave me false hope for a few months on end. That's not great.
No, no,
Um,
that's terrible.
yeah, no, it's just terrible. Luckily, I have been able to get some HRT purely through the grit of my own teeth and just wanting to get it sooner.
Mm-hmm.
But the current regimen I'm on is not great. So for me, transition has sadly been very stagnant for the last few months. Like I've barely noticed any changes, and I am going to visit that endocrinologist again. They're in Belgium. Long story. um, but I'm just gonna ask them to switch me to injections because that works better. And if not, well, I guess I'm just stuck on the bad regimen for a little while longer.
What's your regimen currently? Are you under sublingual, or are you taking patches? What are you working on?
I take sublingual, so
Okay.
I take 2 milligram, two 2 milligram pills in the morning, two 2 milligram pills in the evening, and then also some Cypro.
Mm.
So that's my regimen, and yeah, it's not great.
Well, yeah, a lot of people find that their levels on the sublingual tablets fluctuate, but um, with injections, it tends to like stretch out over the course of like a week or so. So you tend to get like higher peaks, but you get like mid-level lows. It's still like pretty decent. That's good.
Yeah, Yeah, no, I've heard that, and that's also why I really want to switch to injections or patches or just anything to get it up to speed. Because Chloe or Bob Posting, who we all
Hmm.
know, who is absolutely wonderful. I showed her like a blood test of mine like ages ago,
Hmm.
um, be- and she was like, uh, this was shortly after I first, a few months after I'd been visiting that Belgian doctor,
Hmm.
and yeah, she basically said like, well, your T levels are low, so that's good, but your E levels are non-existent, so that's not good.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
so it's I don't know why, but for some reason or the other, my body just kind of doesn't like to make estrogen, even if I take in like 8 milligrams of estrogen a day, it doesn't like to spur on its own production for whatever reason.
interesting. That
Or
is pretty
maybe I'm,
interesting.
yeah, it is weird. Or maybe I'm misunderstanding the science. I am very much not a STEM major or
True.
anything of that sort, so
Yeah, same.
I, so take whatever I've said regarding that with a very big grain of salt because I could just be talking absolute
Yeah,
nonsense.
yeah, yeah, same, same. Everything I say about it is just my own experience and what I've heard from
Mhm.
other people. I don't I don't have any like scientific background. I don't have any endocrinology background. But I would like to learn. If there's anybody that wants to teach me and give me that info, I'm happy to learn. But um
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah, no, same. But well, there are luckily enough homebrew DIY
that's true.
estrogen makers, so they can probably teach us all.
Yeah, that's very true. Well, do you want to move on to the next topic? Talk some about the projects you might be working on or any other interests
Oh,
or hobbies you might have?
sure. Well, one thing before I do move on to just kind of
Mm-hmm.
also
Oh,
to
sure.
get back to how bad the Dutch trans healthcare is. I
Mm-hmm.
have noticed that my a bit of content warning. I'm going to be discussing my dysphoria for a little bit, so anybody listening who doesn't want to listen to that, I get that. Skip ahead a few minutes because this might not be comfortable. Just a content warning out there. Um, but what I have noticed is that, all this waiting combined with this just stagnancy of transition has just really made my dysphoria really bad.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and like I've talked to the people of the hospital about this, saying like my dysphoria is getting really bad. I want treatment now. Uh, and they just come back with, those same crocodile tears of like, oh well, we're sorry, we can't do that. And it's like, it's very frustrating. They
Yeah.
won't even offer you any help, even any non-endocrinological, no endocrine, blah, 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 no hormonal help.
Right.
So they won't even offer slight psychological support if you need it, which I kind of do. But yeah, that's just another great thing about Dutch healthcare, uh, or well, trans healthcare specifically here in the Netherlands. Our healthcare is actually pretty alright.
Yeah.
Uh, but yeah, then let's move on to the next subject now.
Sure. Um, yeah. Let's go ahead and talk about any hobbies or interests you might have or any projects that you're working on.
Well, I'm not really working on any large-scale project right now. Aside from working to have uh, working towards my girlfriend and I living together. Um,
That's good.
yeah, it's a pretty big project, and
Yeah.
good Lord, Dutch immigration services are not very helpful because they are so very strict.
Yeah.
Good Lord. Um, it like Dutch immigration services are one of the most strict in the world, I'm sure, and
Mhm.
it is not great. Um, but yeah, we've aside from that, I'm not really working on any large scale projects at the moment because
Mhm.
I'm still very much in uni. I'm still working on all that, so and that takes up a lot of my time. Like for this semester, I've got to write a 2,000 word essay, a 4,000 word paper, and a 6,000 word paper.
Wow.
And these have to be scientific, well,
Oh,
scientific in the humanities sense of scientific. So they basically just need to be well argumented. They need to have a
yeah.
lot of footnotes and sources and stuff. So, that takes a little bit of time.
Yeah. Yeah, it does.
Yeah,
Oh.
no, it does. So that's mostly what I'm working on,
Mhm.
because I do want to finish my university in a timely manner, and then get a master's, and then, be kind of set for life a little bit.
Yeah. That's a good plan. Um, and yeah, I think you're right. Planning to move in with your partner, always a big step. Always takes a lot of planning and a lot of work. But, in my experience, it's been worth it.
Yeah, oh, that's great. I, yeah, my girlfriend and me, uh, you know, we live something like 8,000, 9,000 kilometers away from each
Oh
other.
my goodness.
It's it's a really long, long distance
Yeah.
relationship.
Yeah.
Um, I've had to cross the Atlantic twice now. Like my forefathers before me, I defeated the sea. Um,
Nice.
uh, but yeah, we've met up twice, and that's gone really well. And hopefully, in like a few months, we can meet up here in the Netherlands, and then after that, once we've seen stuff from both of our home countries, we can then move a little bit more realistically to, okay, to which place do we want to move? Like, do I move to her, or does she move to me? And yeah, uh, so we're still working on that, and I think it'll be worth it because I really love my girlfriend so much. She's just so wonderful, and she just makes me so happy, and she sent me such a sweet message for Valentine's Day. I just melted right on the spot after reading it.
That's cute. Aw. Oh, that warms my heart. I love hearing the cute little stories. It's so cute. Oh my
Yeah, it's and me have a lot of those.
god. Well, very cool. I'm glad that it seems like you've got a really solid plan here laid out, and things are on track. So very exciting. I'm happy to hear that for you at least.
Yeah, thanks. It is going to. I am going to try my absolute hardest to finish uni in a timely manner
Hmm.
because um, the study I'm doing is like when people think of the humanities, they think of like, oh, you just read some books and some articles and about things long gone. And yes, but there is more. Um, like the papers we have to write, we have to, make arguments in them. We have
Hmm.
to relate them to the current academic discourse, not Twitter discourse, luckily, good Lord.
Goodness.
Um, though academic discourse can be just as,
Ah.
well,
Mm,
chaotic.
yeah.
Uh, but yeah, so it's definitely not easy.
Yeah.
I really like what I'm studying because I really like history. I've got something like 40 odd history books
Hmm.
at my place here, so
Yeah.
I I do know a thing or two about history. Um, at, I'll also use my uni granted access to JSTOR and other databases like that to get even more academic sources.
Nice. That's pretty neat.
Yeah, yeah, no, it definitely is.
What draws you to the humanities? What interested you in the first place to get you into that major?
Um, well, you know, it's the classical thing of to understand our present, we need to understand our past. We need to understand where we came from. And it's partially that, and it's partially just because I find history to be truly fascinating. Whether it's how Muslim and Christian societies and cultures mingled in the Crusader states and in Sicily and the Iberian Peninsula,
Mhm,
or how the Allies beat the Axis in World War II,
mhm.
or the civil rights protests in the 1960s. It's just all very interesting because it's the story of us, of people. Um, and much like fiction, you can find your heroes, your cowards, your dastardly villains in
Yeah,
history. Um, so I've just always been attracted to it by that virtue of that it is just such a great story ever told because it's our story.
that is
So
fascinating.
yeah, like even really small things that we don't think about have long
Mm,
histories behind them. And that's always fascinating to think about.
I
So
do
that's
enjoy.
what.
Mm, go.
Sorry, what did you say?
Oh no, I was just agreeing with you. That's all.
uh, yeah, and also because I've now been um, studying history for a few years now,
Mhm.
I also have some opinions about how people online use history because they don't often do it in a very good way.
Oh yeah, you want to get into those opinions?
Oh yeah, sure.
Let's do it. Let's take the gloves off. Let's get into it.
Well, I'm not gonna call out anyone specifically, mostly because these are just examples I'm remembering off the top of my head, so I couldn't call their names if I tried. Um, but like a lot of problems I see with history online is uh is that there's just no real responsibility with how some folks are telling it. So for instance, when possible, and talking about some history stuff, I will use a source or I will have a source on hand so that if somebody asks, this is really interesting, but I would like to read more, then I can just say, oh, well, I read it in this book or this in this article. But you don't see that with a lot of um, historical content creators online. On the one hand, the democratization of history telling has been a great boon to humanity because, minority communities can now tell their histories without fear of being censored. Local museums can tell their history and broadcast it to the world. But, those are people who generally do it responsibly
Mm,
with sources and in an academic manner. But, particularly on TikTok, it's so bad. Oh Lord, it's so bad. There's so many bad history things I've seen on there that it's just really bad. I have nightmares. Um, like one thing I saw was some video where some guy was saying, "Oh, all the presidents of the U.S. were war criminals," and going through them one by one as to why they were, and that on its own is a thesis.
mhm.
I would agree that some US presidents fit the bill, but war criminal is a very specific term.
Yeah.
And I really don't like how it's basically been used very liberally in online spaces because
Mhm,
it very much has that distinct meaning and it has a certain weight. To accuse someone of being a war criminal
mhm,
it should hold some weight. For example, Assad or Saddam or Putin, those
mhm.
are war criminals. they have explicitly targeted civilians, prisoners of war, all of that other stuff, which are war crimes.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and these have gone on specifically because of their orders, which is what makes them war criminals. But U.S. presidents or under U.S. administrations, bad things have happened, but these haven't always been under the direct orders or control of the president, and
Right.
hence it's a little harder to call them war criminals. You can call the people involved war criminals, certainly, but you know, the presidents who had relatively little impact on it, a
Mm-hmm.
little less.
Yeah.
Um, and also in that video, the guy basically goes on to say John F. Kennedy allowed for the use of napalm and Agent Orange in Vietnam, and both of those were horrific weapons, absolutely
Mm-hmm.
horrible. But there's a bit of a problem with that sentence because the US entered Vietnam in combat operations in 1965. JFK died in 1963. So that's a little bit. Hmm. Hmm. Uh,
They're getting the lore wrong. We gotta correct them.
yeah, precisely.
Oh my gosh. Uh,
Yeah, but this isn't a phenomenon that's exclusive to more left-wing sections of the internet. It's absolutely rampant on right-wing parts of the internet, which should come as no surprise.
oh yeah.
For instance, one thing I've noticed here in the Netherlands is that a
Mm-hmm.
lot of right-wingers, and particularly this new and upcoming party and quasi-fascist party called FVD, basically are trying to glorify Dutch history and trying to whitewash the dark pages. So, for instance, between 1946 and 1949, the Netherlands fought a brutal decolonization war in Indonesia because they didn't want to lose their colony. And this war was absolutely brutal. And Dutch forces committed a ton of war crimes for which most were never persecuted. Also, the Dutch government at the time allowed Dutch ex-Nazis to participate in those combat operations. So, that's great.
Yikes.
But those right wingers and that party want to ignore that ever happened. They want to whitewash it and say, "Well, it wasn't that bad." No, it was really bad. I won't recount any of the things here, but some of the stuff that Dutch forces did in Indonesia during that stuff is just really horrific, and it's kind of shocking that here in the Netherlands it's just not really talked about that much.
Mm-hmm.
Or just kind of left left made out to be less worse than it is. Luckily, recently there does seem to be a change in that. A few years ago, the King of the Netherlands went to Indonesia and officially offered his apologies for the actions of Dutch forces
Oh,
in Indonesia. So the winds do seem to be changing, so that's good at least.
that is good news. Yeah. Well, I like to see
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I would like to see the Dutch government issue an official apology as well,
Mm-hmm.
because this was just an apology from the king, which is meant to be like symbolic of our people. It's not an official apology from the government yet.
Right. Yeah, that would be nice to see as well. I'm surprised they didn't
Yeah,
do both at the same time. Wouldn't that have made sense?
it would have,
Would have
but Dutch
coordinated that?
politics
Yeah.
doesn't make sense.
I don't even know anything about my own politics or the American politics that much really. So I can't even begin to speak on Dutch politics.
I'll just say this about Dutch politics. It's weird. It's it's not great.
Yeah,
It's weird.
very interesting. Well,
Uh, yeah. So yeah, basically TLDW, the democratization of history telling that the internet has brought us is great, but on the other hand, it has also brought with it a slew of negatives.
Oh, yeah, that's true. Um,
I, ha- I have a whole lot more thoughts, but I think I'll leave it at that.
oh, okay, sure. Well, I think it's been a really great boon as well. Being able to spread, even like narrowing it down just to like our little community that we share, the trans community, the sharing of
Yeah.
information that we see about that, opening up here in the last few years, even. Um, Incredible, just incredible for our community.
Oh
Um,
yeah, no, it's great
yeah, absolutely.
because yeah, because traditional academic institutions, well, they might not censor you for it. It very much depends on where you are, who you are, what institution you work for. But some of them definitely don't really try to fund as much history into that. Or,
Hmm.
well, maybe not explicitly, but it's just not one of their priorities.
Right.
Um, yeah. So it's great that because of the internet, we can tell these stories of the trans community
Hmm.
in detail and, bring that out to a wider audience. I read a fascinating article last year as part of my studies
Hmm.
talking about this, and well, uh, uh, f- yeah, it was just fascinating talking about how we could use the internet in the future to do this even better.
Yeah, that does sound great. I would like to. I know I do this a lot, but I would like to take a moment to plug the little project that Ashley and I are working on, the TRCP, the Trans Resource Curation Project. It's amazing. We're trying to get like all that information together in an easy to navigate website and just have all of it for everybody. If you want to see it, you can see it. So that's amazing.
Oh, is that like with what is that exactly? I hadn't heard of that. I've been off Twitter a few days, so maybe I
Oh,
missed it. But can you tell me more about it?
sure. Yeah, it's I'm sure you're familiar with Ashley Jubilee.
Oh yeah, I know her.
Okay. Yeah.
She's really lovely. She's
Yeah.
very kind.
No, she's great. But she and I have been working on this project. We're basically cultivating a whole bunch of resources for trans people. Pretty much everything you should need to know about transition before you start, while you're doing it, all that good stuff. Um,
Ah, okay.
yeah, so like makeup resources, fashion resources, social transition resources, voice training resources, HRT resources, pretty much everything you need. And then we're also planning on doing something for cis people and people who have loved ones who are
Ah,
trans that need help understanding or have questions and stuff like that. So yeah, basically just an all-encompassing kind of one-stop shop for everything.
yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah,
Good luck with that.
thank you.
Um, yeah, it's kind of similar, or well, related to that. One of the reasons my parents kind of accepted me pretty easily is because, uh, and this is what I recommend to anybody who's worried about coming out and their folks not accepting them.
Hmm.
Just kind of make it clear to them that you're still the same person. Your gender is just kind of changing. Your interests, your hobbies, they're still the same. My personality is pretty much still the same as it was 5 years ago before my
Hmm.
egg cracked. And so to reassure my parents, I basically said a lot of that, like I'm still the same person. But what I also did, and I recommend this, is just to say, if you have any questions, you can talk to me anytime, any moment. I also
Hmm.
did this with my extended family, and that really helped them accept me a lot more because you know I was just playing with a very open deck of cards. Um, so yeah, they would just have questions, which with most of them being very Orthodox Protestant, I'm sure they would have. Um,
Yeah.
and I just answered those calmly, and yeah, I also showed them videos by other trans people talking
Hmm.
about their experiences, and all that really helped. So yeah, this thing you're doing with Ashley, it's really great. I wish you to good luck with that.
Thank you. Yeah. Hopefully it'll start to pan out a little bit more as this year goes on. Hopefully we plan to have something up and going by the end of the year at the latest. But
All
we'll
right.
see how that plans out. So,
All right. Well, if you need any specific resources for the Netherlands specifically,
mhm.
hit me up and I'll see what I can find for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're trying to do gather like information about like legal name change and stuff like that for different areas of the world. So we'll definitely reach out when we get to writing that portion of the guide and see if you can offer some assistance. Thank you.
No problem. Always glad to help.
Awesome.
uh,
Go ahead.
uh, no, I was just kind of chuckling.
Oh, okay. Well, was there anything else you wanted to maybe talk about before we wrap up for today?
uh, hmm. Well, if you wouldn't mind, I do kind of want to expand on what I said earlier about those positives and negatives of the
Yeah.
democratization of history, because in a very kind of, I'm autistic, so I tend to focus on things a lot, and this
Hmm.
is something I have been thinking about for a while. I might
Hmm.
eventually try to write an academic article on it and submit it to some places, but
Hmm.
basically the democratization of history telling, it's been a great boon because of stuff like that website you and Ashley are putting together, or because of other history projects from minority communities or local communities. um but yeah, like I said, there's also a very dark side with it. I touched on the lighter dark side, which is just historical misinformation, which is very common, but a very dark side, which I see, which particularly because of COVID and stuff, I'm seeing pop up more and more and more at a worrying degree, is conspiracy theories, whether they be related to COVID or something else. And it is genuinely worrying to me because I don't want to be too alarmist, but I remember seeing polls of like, oh, 30% of the United States adult population believes in X conspiracy theory. And that is worrying. Even if the conspiracy theories aren't aren't that harmful necessarily, like believing Area 51
Hmm.
houses aliens, which cookie belief, but whatever. It doesn't harm people on the grander scale. The problem is just once you kind of start to think like that and you don't put reasonable limits on it, you go down that rabbit hole very fast.
Yeah.
That's why I think we've seen so many conspiracy theories pop up around COVID and stuff because uh, you know, conspiracy theory, conspiracy theorists, they make their stuff freely available on the internet with bad history and stuff, and that makes people believe them.
Yeah.
Um, and that's why I've seen like uh, uh, some of this might be a little content warning appropriate, just as a heads up.
Hmm.
I've seen a lot of genocide denial based on conspiracy theories and stuff like that, and very very anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, even from people you wouldn't normally expect those kind of things to come from.
Hmm.
And yeah, it's just very worrying. And I think what historians and academics at large need to do is that really need to fight this on the front lines of the internet. Um, Atin Shea, who's a great history YouTuber, highly recommend, one of the few history YouTubers I recommend, um, said in a video of his talking about Atlantis and all the pseudo history around that,
Hmm.
that he and other truly responsible history YouTubers are alone on the front line, because for every responsible history YouTuber, you have 15 irresponsible history YouTubers who push conspiracy theories and myths and stuff. And so I heavily agree with him that we as academics and as historians have a responsibility to try and combat this as much as we can. And that's why I think we need to make academic databases and sources like JSTOR far more freely available, because help slow down misinformation just is not accessible for a common person. Like a JSTOR is like $50 a month for a year or something. So that's could even be more. I very might I got it through my uni, so I don't know the exact pricing, but I know it's expensive. And other academic databases are also very expensive. So for us to combat this misinformation, we need to make these things openly available, or we need to start, producing our own content to counteract this. Because at the moment, misinformation is very dangerous, and we've seen real effects of what this misinformation can do. We've seen it last year on January 6th at the U.S. Capitol. With all those conspiracy theorists storming the Capitol, we've seen it here in the Netherlands with a lot of our anti-mandate protests with a lot of conspiracy theorists, and that um, one party in particular, the FAD, is pushing some of these. So this misinformation is reaching a new level. And this, as a historian, I I see all this, and I get very worried because this is a I genuinely worry about this on a daily basis because it is not great, and we really need to do a whole lot more to combat it because the longer we let this misinformation fester, the more chance there is that more people will see it as the truth. Uh, we used to make jokes about, oh, Bill Gates puts microchips in vaccines to track you, but now people actually believe that. So, yeah,
Yeah,
it's just worrying.
it's very
Sorry to
worrying. No, you're
Sorry to
fine.
be a little depressing and alarmist.
No, it's fine. No, I can't tell you. So I work in IT, and I can't tell
Mhm.
you the number of people that I talk to on an average day that ask me if there's a router that they can get without 5G because they're allergic.
Oh my god. Oh wow. Yeah,
Just, yeah.
it's weird. Here in the Netherlands at the start of the pandemic, a few like satellite towers or stuff were burnt down, or broadcasting towers, because they
Yeah.
supposedly had 5G. At that point, 5G was still not installed
I
anywhere in the
know.
Netherlands,
Yeah.
and I still don't think it is.
No.
Um, so,
Um,
that's great.
yeah, no, actually, my company lost one of our towers for the same
Oh,
reason. We don't
wow.
even we don't even do 5G. We're not like a cellular provider. We don't yeah. But yeah,
Yeah,
somebody came with their fucking Jeep or something and just hooked it up to the fucking tower and pulled that sucker down, and it came down and shattered into 100,000 pieces. And
that can't have been cheap.
no, it wasn't. And you know what wasn't cheap on me? The fucking emotional labor I had to do for all those people for the next like 2 weeks while we got
Mhm.
something else up going for them. Like,
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, no, precisely. Uh, yeah, relatedly, a friend of my family,
mhm.
um, who's very nice in most regards. He's a very nice person. A recent, with the start of the COVID pandemic, also fell into these conspiracy theories. And he's not stupid or anything. Like, he's got a bachelor's and I think a few master's degrees. He works in computer science, so he's not stupid or anything, but he still believes in these objectively false conspiracy theories. And that just also kind of shows the danger
Yeah.
of this, that it's even reaching people who would normally not believe in this stuff.
Mhm. That's
Hopefully,
absolutely true.
yeah, hopefully now that the COVID pandemic is winding down, at least here in Europe, we'll see a decrease of it. But the pessimistic side of me uh, says that the damage is done and likely will not be undone for quite a while.
Yeah. It's
So
going to be
that's fun
hard.
to think about.
I mean,
Yeah.
it's about as fun to think about as when I think about the landfills and stuff, the giant piles of garbage we've got floating in the ocean and shit like that. Just
Yeah,
yeah,
it's
that's great. I love just getting into a bubble bath and thinking about floating garbage. That's my favorite thing to do. I love it.
eh, yeah. I have those kind of intrusive thoughts too. Do not recommend.
Yeah, no. I try to push them out and just like think about kitties or something. I don't know.
Yeah, usually when I have intrusive thoughts, I'll just look at pictures of my girlfriend or
Oh,
of our family dog, and yeah, that helps.
that's adorable.
Yeah, she's just so adorable. What can I say? That even seeing her picture, even when I'm feeling really down, really dysphoric, really bad, just seeing her picture or rereading some of the sweet messages she sent me makes me feel a lot better already.
That's so sweet. Oh my gosh. Oh. Well, thank you for sharing all that with me. I really appreciate that. That warms my heart quite a bit.
No problem. And
Um,
well, I think that's a nice warm ending to an otherwise kind of grim conversation.
sure. Yeah. No, I think that's a good time to wrap up. Anything you wanted to plug before we leave? Do you want people to follow you on Twitter or anything like that?
Yeah, at the time of this recording, my main is still deactivated because
True.
of transphobic trolls.
Okay.
Um, but if you want to follow me, just look for at Tankgirl with an O or Tanker Lesbian Elise, and you'll probably find me if based on what I've said so far, you want to follow me. I post a lot of memes and historical memes. So if that sounds like a good time, follow me. And then regarding something I would like to plug, well, I would like to plug, with the recent, with how bad our world is getting, I would like to, plug the UNHRCF, I believe it's called, which is the United Nations Child Refugee Fund. I'll see if I can find it for you, and then I'll send you a link to put it
Okay.
in the um uh but yeah, that's all I'd like to plug.
Okay.
And if you can and have any money laying around, give it to GoFundMe's of your trans friends or put it
Mm,
towards a good goal towards bettering the world.
that's right.
Because my life's motto is basically to seek altruism and freedom. I just be kind to the folks you see, just help them, just be kind. That's
That's
all
a
I'd
good
like to
motto.
say.
I like that a lot. Well, thank you. Thank you.
No problem.
All right. Well, thank you all for coming out to another episode of Friendly Friday. If you would go ahead and hit that like button and the subscribe button and all that good stuff. I'm going to put some links down in the description, so check those out as well. Thank you again, Elise, for coming on to the show. Very much appreciate your time, so thank you for that.
No problem.
Alrighty. Well, thank you all for coming out. Take care and have a good day. Bye bye.